Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Yeah, I saw your Slack note of making sure we take a handbook first approach to our learning materials, and just wanted to talk with you further about what you had in mind and what you've seen, any kind of specific feedback that you have, so we can we can do that.
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't know. We have to figure this out together. So I don't have any fixed opinions. You had a great job description, and one of the things I saw in there was an acronym. I listened to it for XML technology, released in last updated 2004 for making courses. And I thought to myself, yeah, it makes sense. It's probably a standard that's used by the most popular products. I think it is a product for e-learning. Hey, maybe there's a better way. And our mission, I'd love for course materials to be something people can contribute to, even if they don't have an Adobe license, even if they don't work at the company. They can send in an improvement. And we've been relatively successful with our handbook, as in, I think we have the most extensive and up-to-date materials about how our company works of any I've ever seen. And I wonder whether we can extend that to learning, and learning is different. It's, for example, the content you consumed is more structured. Like, it's not a bunch of links, but you get paced through it, and your progress gets recorded, and you have tests, and you have certification, and you have mentor feedback and peer evaluations and reminders and all that good stuff that an e-learning platform brings. So I'm not sure how to kind of combine the great stuff that we have in the handbook, and that it's up to date and extensive and approachable by everyone, and everyone can make a suggestion, with the great stuff that e-learning technology brings. But I figured it was worth the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be the first to admit too, so the job description I sourced from, I went looking for, hey, how do other SaaS companies, not that we're just SaaS, but how do other technology software companies describe their instructional designers? So I'll be the first to admit, I'm not the expert on which technology to use, but it can always sourced it from a bunch of different descriptions. So we're not wedded to that. Just
maybe good to give it a bit of an update, and also include what we have, static website, being familiar with static website as an optional requirement.
Yeah. That makes sense. And then even we look at, one of the challenges is for kind of adult learning best practices, it's really only, we've seen 10% of the learning happens in that structured environment. So as you mentioned, the learning really happens when it's learning through others, social learning, right? Learning from peers. But then the magic happens when it's application based, where you bridge that knowing doing gap. You've got the knowledge, but then you need to actually do it. So many of our learning experiences, they encourage folks, right? We facilitate people applying that knowledge both in a safe environment, but then also in a in the real world environment too. So I think we can look at marrying both of those, because some of the challenges inherent with a website approach is like the tracking. Did they complete it? Did they demonstrate that they understand? Can they have the knowledge piece, and then the ability to apply it? Some of those are kind of hard to figure out in a static website, but no doubt we can put some of the structure elements in there. And does that jog any thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And the thought I have is, I totally agree. Like, we need those great things that e-learning platforms bring. Some of the learning also happens like when you're no longer going through the course, but you're just doing your day-to-day job like 2 years later, and you need that piece of knowledge, and it's out there, you've consumed it, but you forgot what it said. And at that time, we want people to be able to go back and easily find it. And that place is our handbook. Like, if you need to know something in the company, that is the handbook. I never found myself going back to a learning course. Well, the handbook, you can just Google GitLab and what you want to know, you'll probably find the handbook. The other thing is that it's very easily for lost moving company to keep up to date. So we discovered we have to be handbook first in order to prevent materials from going out of date. An approach I've been starting to use and that I recommend others use is now that if I give a presentation and it talks about something that is in the handbook as well, to screenshot the handbook. It's ugly, it doesn't look great, but that way people know, oh, this is in the handbook, this is how it looks. I only have to kind of create the materials one time. And it makes sure that that people can rely on the fact that it's already in the handbook and that they know they can find it in the handbook. And otherwise, every time you see something, you have to question, okay, was this copied from the handbook or not? But if you screenshot it, it's obvious, it's clear. And you don't have to like reformat it for the slide or anything else. So instead of doing things 2 times, let's do them 1 time. So I'm kind of comfortable with everything being in the e-learning platform, as long as all the slides there are just screenshots from the handbook, because that way we know we're not having that duplication and the handbook is up to date and people know where to get back to. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I guess question to make sure I understand. So one of the things that we do is this weekly webinar series, and it's for continuing education, right? We focus on things that are going to be revenue impacting to provide an update to the field. The most recent example, we had David Sakamoto and Brendan O'Leary talk about selling services to improve customer adoption and satisfaction, and time to value. So they reference things in the handbook, but just for aesthetic purposes, they did put together a series of slides that we walked through, and we posted the slides to, so there's all this is in an issue. We've got an issue board to track all the different sales enablement sessions. So we make the slides available. We publish that to GitLab, to GitLab Unfiltered, but I don't think all of that content is necessarily in the handbook. Is that bad? Is that what, should we make that a requirement that like any content shared in a presentation like that needs to be in the handbook?
Yeah, like look, our first objective is results. So I know that we have to do a lot of things right now that we've not done before, and I'm very grateful for everyone contributing that and making sure we get up to speed. In my mind, in an ideal world, if you have an update, like the stuff that's not longer relevant in 3 weeks, like this were the sales numbers or something like that, that doesn't need to be in the handbook. That's fine to go in the presentation. The stuff you talked about, like, hey, how do we sell services and things like that, I would say that would like preferably be screenshots from the handbook. And then for aesthetic purposes, I know the handbook isn't super beautiful. We'll put an entire team of people on there, and one of the things they'll do is make it more beautiful. But I might much rather have the slides look a bit worse, but know there's a single source of truth. And also prevent things like having an issue as a source to more information. That's not what issues are for. Issues are like the work you do. An issue as a reference is probably an anti-pattern. An issue shouldn't be a reference to find courses or things like that. We should have a page in the handbook that unlocks it. Now we could get better about the handbook. Like it takes 40 minutes to deploy a change. Like there's some serious usability problems that we'll work on, and people have to, I understand that people take shortcuts in the interim, but issues are a way to specify what needs to get done. But if you want to communicate something, it should be in the handbook. So in an ideal world, in the handbook would have a page with all the different pieces of content, rather sorted kind of by per function, like what do you want to achieve, and the slides that are still relevant a couple of months from now would be screenshot of the handbook.
That makes sense. And I should say, we do both. But I'm hearing you, let's not make that like a source of, that's, yeah, it's more for managing the work. But I know you're super busy. Would you be willing to, I can share with you what we have documented in the handbook, see if you've got any feedback of, hey, I really like this, but, and, you know, more like this, but here's a couple elements that I think could be more handbook friendly, or things that you can improve upon.
Yeah, for sure. Feel free to do it now, share your screen, or some other time.
Yeah, I'll share it.
And I'll just blurt out what I think. That's not always right, and feel free to push back, and don't take it as gospel.
So working with Hong, we've got, so this was a MVP of our of having, you know, each of our functions have a page in the handbook. So I've just, you know, we're going to work towards our goal is our timeline, or we'll have a V2 update before the next sales QBRs. But I mean, I'll even take a step back. So
no, this is great. I understand this. I know where it comes from, because I told McBride, hey, how come we have the entire departments without handbook pages? So I think I know where it comes from.
Cool. So it misses a lot, right? But so I've linked to the 3 of the key, like, top priorities that we're working on. One of the things that's missing here is what we're starting to do now for customer education. But Christine Yoshida, who we hired, she's just a couple of weeks in. So she's going through the onboarding now. So that will come in due time. But for example, so linking to sales onboarding, right? We've documented here, hey, this is what it's all about, right? So these are the topics that are covered. Here's the process, right? From the general GitLab onboarding issue to this is where the sales onboarding issue is covered, right? We have a little video.
Yeah, so this is great. This is great stuff. And for example, the video, why not embed that here? Why make people click out? Why not embed the video?
So maybe this is where it starts to reveal my shortcomings. How to embed the video. Who could I talk to learn how to do that?
So Brian Sexton would be happy to help you there.
Awesome.
And if you don't find what you need with Brian, then you can always refer to me, and I'll hand it off to Emily Shario. But Brian Sexton is our big handbook help, so he'll be happy. And before you do that, just Google GitLab YouTube embed, because there, I know it's documented already, so maybe you'll be able to find that out yourself. But if not, just reach out. Don't waste time on it.
Cool. Yeah, I'll try to figure out myself, but won't spend way too many cycles. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so that's sales onboarding. We even go into talking about, you know, so it's general GitLab onboarding, the sales onboarding issue, which is sales centric. What do you need to know, be able to say, you know, to be able to articulate to customers, and then even describe the sales quick start, which I think Big B had talked to you about, and we updated the language here saying, you know, we strive to do as much remotely as possible. But we reserve the quick start to be some of those interactive elements, the mock role plays, things like that are hard to duplicate or replicate in a remote kind of virtual format.
Yep. It's great. I love the language. By the way, my wife once worked at a company that had the mock role play, did that remote, and was a big success. So I think remote can do more, but we need the right tools to support us. But that's for a different day.
I agree. So we'll go back. All right. So then in terms of the command of the message, all that work. So we've got here, this definitely needs an improvement, but we at least have everything documented in the handbook. So as part of, these are the most commonly used sales resources that this is technically, we manage this with the product marketing team. So with John Jeremiah, but we've got, you know, links to all the different documents here. As we look to, I am going to re-swizzle this. Any particular suggestions or guidance of things to keep in mind as we come up with kind of version 2 of these materials?
Yeah, I think a page that is like top sales resources tends to evolve into a grab bag of things. It's like a junk drawer where you have all kinds. It's very hard to say something doesn't belong here. So these pages tend to get unwieldy over time.
Yeah.
And in handbook usage, we talk about how we try to prevent pages that say, like, for example, glossary or FAQ or resources or things like that, because it if something is not specific enough, it becomes hard to keep them up to date, because you tend to never remove stuff, because it's really hard to make the call to remove something, because what's not a sales resource? Everything is. So it tends to become unwieldy, not something we have to fix tomorrow, but just something to maybe keep in the back of your mind.
No, that's helpful. So what I'm gleaning here is maybe just have a dedicated page just on this.
For sure, we should have a command of the message page. And for sure, that page should say, here are your top resources for command of the message. If you anything, these are the things. And then per function, per like chat, like, hey, if you're a manager, you probably want to look at this. And if you're an SDR, do a lot of phone interviews, you should look at this. And if you want to go deep and understand why we made this, look at this, something like that.
Cool. All right. And the last one I'll show you is, so this notion, this is also work in progress, because a lot of cycles have been focused on onboarding and command of the message. But this is equally, if not more important, right, of after they're onboarded, how do we continue to help folks advance their skills?
Can we go back to the command of the message? And I thought I knew the answer to this, but I think it's worth asking. That Google Doc, the GitLab value framework, is that not possible to put online because we cannot share it with the rest of the world due to copyright reasons?
We can share, we can share the GitLab value framework. Then it becomes, it does have some, this is an interesting conversation, right? It does have, it's how we compete, right? It's got our differentiators. Do we want to expose that?
I think so.
So where do we draw the line for exposing like how we compete against others? I mean, it clearly shows out like this is our playbook for how we're going to beat the competition.
Yeah, I think it's hard. So what we can do is iterate. So not expose everything at the same time, but take one page of that, one you think would be hard to share, and then share that and see how it affects us. The best strategies are the strategies that you can tell people about them, but they still work. I hope we compete based on how our product is better. And there's a bit of like competitors adjusting to what we do. I think you're going to have that effect. You're also going to have some people at the competition that say, okay, well, this is such a good strategy, I'm just going to join GitLab instead. And we've seen a lot of people from the competition join us. So there's some pros and some cons. In general, we try to, right now, competitive differentiators are not listed as something we're not public about. So I'm willing to add them as something we're not public about, but people had this hesitation too about like roadmaps. Oh, if you share your roadmap, your competition will view it and they'll preempt you, and they do. However, the benefit has been much bigger. So it's going to be detrimental in some ways, but we might overestimate the size and underestimate the size of how it's going to help us.
Got it.
Because don't you want people to view why GitLab is a better solution? It's not just the competition that will be viewing this, it's also customers.
Yeah, no, I definitely see the advantages there. Now, hopefully we're exposing that too on just the core website. But I guess to your point, folks are going to find their way here as well. So let's expose it there. Okay, cool. Some of these other ones, so maybe we start there with making that publicly available. Some of these other ones that are more like internal job aids, kind of look at as a future phase to consider? What are your thoughts?
I think those are even easier to expose. Like there's even less. I think the one that's the biggest question is like we said so-called traps for competitors. I don't like the word, but it's what it's called in that document.
Yeah.
I think that's like, is that the best thing to expose that? Is that going to achieve the result we want? I'm not sure about that, but like the opportunity coaching guide and the Metric template and stuff like that, I think as long as that's okay copyright wise, I think it's totally fine to expose that. I think that's going to be a benefit for sure.
Cool. So I'll do some, I'll take the note to, I'll make sure I check with the vendor to make sure we're not going to violate any kind of IP agreement.
Yeah. And I think the problem is there, and I can understand if the problem is there. And then we should just note here, like, hey, this is a Google Doc instead of on our website because of copyright, because we're not allowed to publish it because of copyright by the vendor, which is fine. That's I think we agreed that before we took this vendor on, so they're totally within their rights, and when we understand that.
Yeah, very helpful. The last one I'll share, and again, let me know if you have a hard stop. I really appreciate you taking the time. I want to be sensitive to your time.
No, I got 2 more hours, so good.
All right. I promise it won't take that much time. And this last one is for continuous improvement, continuous education for the sales team. This is some work I've done previously with looking at, we expect our sales teams to know and be able to do a lot of different things. But ultimately, I feel comfortable that we can break them into these 6 buckets, right? Do they understand who we sell to, the personas, what the personas care about? You know, they need to be trusted advisors, so they understand what's happening in the industry. Can they articulate a value proposition? Do they understand?
I love this. This is great. I love this framework. I think these are all the essential things.
So what we've done here then, and it's not pretty, right? But this is where when we do those enablement sessions, we publish them here, right? We figure out, we prioritize what are the core things that folks need to know, be able to do, be able to articulate, and we use those enablement sessions to help.
That's awesome. And all these links that have minutes, those are videos. Are those on YouTube? Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great stuff.
So for example, the one we did on services just yesterday, right? I need to update to make sure to put in the minutes here. But yeah, it goes straight to.
Are all these videos public? Because I haven't not seen a lot of them, but I might have missed them myself.
Yeah. So for example, this one's public. So it's under.
That's great.
It's GitLab. We published to GitLab Unfiltered, and we published to the Sales Enablement playlist. So if I go to, for example, so if I view the full playlist, yeah. So this week.
Oh, it's unlisted. That's why stuff isn't showing up.
What should it be?
Public. Everything should be public.
Cool.
Everything, but everything that can be. And generally, we don't do unlisted anymore because if something is confidential, we should make sure it's private. So it's either private if we really can share it, otherwise it's public. But we try to not use unlisted.
Okay, good. That's helpful. I did not know. So perfect. So change that, and you can see, I'm logged in with my unfiltered account. If I were to switch accounts to my personal, you can see some of these we do mark as private because they either contain a customer information or some other kind of sensitive.
Cool. Can you scroll down a bit and get a feel for how many? It's about 50-50, right? Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. And then
and if there's customer questions, I think it's okay to have the customer question. Just don't name the customer.
Agreed. Some of these, it's like these are live, and we're doing them in real time, and then somebody shows their screen, and all of a sudden it's Salesforce, and it says the customer name. And
yep, no, it happens, and that's okay. That's okay. It's just every time you say, "Oh, oops," okay, we're gonna mark this one private, but and we'll try better next time. That's totally cool. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Well, that's the main thing. So yeah, I think that's the last piece there. Let me go back. So then, and also at the bottom, then we have documentation of, hey, all right, so if you want to learn about how we do these sales enablement sessions, there's a whole page that outlines our process of like, all right, here's how you get invited, you know, public versus private. Here's some of this needs to be updated. Well, definitely needs to be updated. Cool. How we schedule.
Can you go back to the previous page for me, please?
This one?
So if you scroll a bit up, it says, yeah, no, I like it. Like, I was a bit worried. We had some organization that said, here are videos, and that's never great. Like you want a combination, you want kind of multimedia content. So some of it is text in the handbook, some of it is a link to a video, some of it are links to external resources, some of it are pictures and drawings. That all kind of comes together under a certain subject. So it's great. Like it's, I wonder for like things like competition. Can we go to GitLab portfolio maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And consider making those things clickable, by the way, if you can. But okay.
Yeah, is that also, do you think, is Brian can help me with that, make this image clickable?
If it's an image, yeah, even images can be made clickable. So why not? In general, even though it looks much nicer, I wouldn't use images because they're super hard to update. So suppose we find a 7th skill or something, or suppose someone wants to change, like we decided to change SDLC to not use that anymore and use the hipper acronym, I don't know, ABC. If someone's going to do a find and replace in the handbook, they're not going to find this text because it's in an image. So an image is kind of a way, like, it's the same as if you PDF something, people are much less likely to contribute back to it. So even though it looks great, I'd make it text in the handbook. And if you want something, it's not nice that the handbook doesn't look super nice. It doesn't look nice, but I don't think making things into images is the way to get there. Okay.
What's your thought on making this into like a text table?
Yeah, that I've seen that. I find tables to be kind of hard to, like, you have to make sure you get every single but it's a vertical line in there, pipe sign, like it's not great. But I also understand the value of something looking good. So there's not super good solutions. Maybe ask Brian. I understand why you did the trade-off. For sure, Brian can help to make the image clickable. And just be aware of the trade-offs. I don't have an opinion of what it should look like. The best would be if it's text-based, but Brian can make it look better.
Okay.
And a table is already better.
Good. All right, then you said portfolio. So were you going to say something else here?
Yeah. This is great. This is. I just want to see, like, yeah, are you linking different kinds of content? Yeah, you're linking some videos and some. Yeah. I'm missing, for example, like a link to. We have a feature page about GitLab, so maybe these are. It feels a bit only video.
Yeah.
Although there's some other stuff, but it feels a bit video centric. Well, there might also be text-based resources for people.
Yeah. One of the things that we're grappling with, right, is we start to, because I agree, let's add all the resources at some point, kind of balancing at what point it becomes too much and too overwhelming. Yep. And that's not an easy answer, and we're not going to solve for it here, but yeah. And I'm also trying to be sensitive to, at some point, these become too old. And so it's time to either deprecate or look to refresh those.
Yep, for sure. But for example, for every feature in GitLab, we have a feature page, and someone wouldn't be able to find those from here.
Yeah. All right. I'll add those in. And then
Well,
competition you mentioned. So we also link to, for example, the competitive intelligence page. This was that's the video. Then to the Crayon application that has the battle cards. And yeah, here's a one to. Oh, I thought that
yeah,
was
so
that video on the comparison page, but it would be good to link to the comparison page.
exactly. So
Yeah.
for sure, after this video, you want to have a link to the comparison page so that you can go straight there. And in general, if a video references some source materials, it would be great to have the links there and in the description of the video.
Gotcha. Cool. Hey, well, thanks so much for the time. This is really helpful. I imagine that there might be some more questions from the team. So thanks for letting me record this and sharing this out. And particularly as we start to think more and get more into customer training. So today, right, when you become a customer, you know this better than I do, but you have kind of a couple choices. You can either go to YouTube, where we've got a number of different, pieces of content that people put together as kind of not their main job, but their side job. Folks doing a lot of heavy lifting in the professional services team have done, great job putting that together. Or you can pay a consultant to come out to do on-site training. I believe there's an opportunity for us to have something that's in between, something that's a little bit more
For sure.
professional than just the self-help YouTube stuff. But that doesn't go away. That stays, right? We continue to have that. This is additive. So we will still have, the ability for folks to do on-site training if that's what the customer wants. But if the customer is looking for, that more professional, virtual self-paced training that adheres to adult learning best practices, we want to provide that option as well. So as we start to think about, all right, what does that look like? How does it come to life? Thinking about how do we take a handbook first approach to that? I imagine there'll be some more questions that come up that we can, collectively figure out.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Safe travels. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.
All right. See you, Sid.